Hello everybody and welcome! Since Mass Effect Andromeda came out, some of you have asked me to do a KSP recreation of the Tempest, the main ship in that game. Well, ask and you shall receive. If I'm feeling like it, of course. Some of you may remember the KSP version of the Normandy SR-1, the ship from the first Mass Effect game. It weighed a gigantic 1500 tons and also had 1700 parts, so it was completely unusable outside of the showcase video. I did not want to be that the case for the Tempest, so I scaled it down a bit. Although the Normandy really was an awesome project. But, well, you can't have it both ways, so this Tempest is a bit smaller than the Normandy, which is also the case within the game. So here we already have the vehicle in orbit. You may have already noticed the blue glow of the engine compartments and some nice sun shining on the hull of the Tempest. One of the main challenges was to, well, kind of create that hump in the middle of the hull, where, of course, in the game there is like this meeting area with a lot of windows and so on, but from the outside you can see the windows because it's special sci-fi glass and, oh yeah, whatever. So this was a bit of a challenge because KSP not really offers you a lot of round parts or like with a slope or something like that. And, well, there were also some other things I had to work around with. But, well, yeah, this is a really usable and possibly practical ship you can use in Kerbal space program. So it's not only just a little trophy you can put on the runway or in space and be happy that it exists. You can actually use this to travel around the solar system in Kerbal space program, since it has, well, about 3,500 meters per second of delta V. Okay, let's have a small little tour of that ship. You may have already noticed the drills in the back. Yes, this thing is self-sustainable. And that the hull is made of, well, a lot of wing parts, which makes it terrible on planets with atmospheres. So don't try to fly this on Lathe or Kerbin. You have already seen that hump in the middle for the meeting areas, and we have, of course, cargo bay where we have parked our Nomad. Yeah, that six-wheeler out of the six-wheeler of the game, which is kind of in spirit of the Mako without the gun, of course, and a little bit less wonky. Okay, let's take a look at the interior. I have tried, of course, to model it after the sort of real Tempest, but I think that the designers, well, they took some weird, well, they made it so that I think the interior is way bigger than the exterior. It's kind of weird, because if you crawl around the ship on the outside, the Tempest feels a lot smaller than it is on the inside. So this was quite a challenge for me to kind of recreate the interior and still kind of keep with the shape of the ship. Because, well, of course, if you're a game developer, you can just make the interior and make the exterior and don't have anything of them to do with each other. So let's head back to the engine bay. Our engine in this case is an ISRU. Of course we have to, well, process our ore if we want this ship to be a self-sustainable thing. Okay, let's head outside and try out our little Nomad. The Nomad in the game, of course, is a four-seater, but then again, the wheels in the game are also a lot bigger. And I did not want to use tweak scale or any other mods, so I scaled down the Nomad so it's only a one-seater now. Oh well, you can't have everything. Okay, what you can have, however, is some propulsion. There we go. This is firing up nicely. And of course you have to get back inside the cargo bay in order to get off of a planet when you're on there. Okay, well, not Kerbal, of course, because there's no way the thrust-to-weight ratio is high enough. But on Duna, as you can see, it is possible to land and take off. Having enough of delta V to reach orbit or land safely is another thing. I hyper-edited this thing over here. But I just wanted to show you something with the Nomad. After, of course, having a nice view around. Okay, Nomad, get out of there. Come on, drive that thing. And there we go. Once more, we're trying out our propulsion and, of course, our jump jets. Yes. On anything with less gravity than Duna or Kerbal, for that matter, you can actually use this to jump around. Trying to fly this thing on Duna is an entirely different matter. As I mentioned before, the aerodynamics are really wonky because of all those wing parts and the nose is pressed down really intensely. And yeah, in the end you will run out of oxidizer sooner than your nuclear engines would be able to take over and get this thing off from Duna. So Duna is out of the question, but Val, for instance, isn't. So anything like the Moon or Val or Dres or Ike or whatever, you can land the Tempest at those planets, on those planets of course, and then take a nice drive around and take in scenery, gather some science, look at the sunset or sunrise, and then of course after you refueled, you can get back up into orbit. Yes, I'm going to show you that sequence over here, so otherwise you maybe won't believe me that this is really capable of reaching orbit of Val. And also I really like Jool rising over the horizon over there. Look at that, that is really nice. I am of course once again using environmental visual enhancements and a scatterer to make this thing prettier. And while we do that, let's have a look outside the windows. This is of course from the ring around the meeting area, and this is the view from the cockpit up front. Which is a bit silly because of the angle, but what does it matter? Okay, we're already closing in on our circularization burn. There we go, we're firing our engines. And once that is done, then of course we can maybe fly back to Kerbal or visit some of the other moons of Jool or do whatever pleases us. As I mentioned before, the Tempest is fully usable and of course you can enjoy a trip around the solar system like that. But how do you get it in orbit? Well, I thought maybe I'd try the SSTO approach. In this case, just one booster to get this thing into orbit. So the Tempest weighs around 170 tons or something, so it's not that heavy, I think. And well, problem is, as mentioned before, the aerodynamics. So you really have to work it again. Okay, this is my second attempt. But, oh well, this was not so successful either. So, what should we do, of course? Again! We are going to add more wings for additional stability, and since this is a huge vehicle and has already huge wing areas, we need huge wings to counteract that. This was working fine, although I really had to keep my fingers on the controls all the time because it was trying to steer left, right, up, down, you name it. But in the end I managed to get this thing into orbit. I also had to increase the amount of fuel I carried since, well, due to the drag of all those aero parts, it kind of made it necessary to have more delta V than usual for an orbit around Kerbal. Okay, decoupling that big booster, and there we go, the Tempest is free of its shackles and can of course travel around and do cool stuff. Save some aliens maybe, I don't know. Okay, by the way, please don't spoil Mass Effect Andromeda for me. I have just started it and I kind of got to know the Angara at the moment, so I don't really know how and where this thing will go. This thing, however, is going to go down. Yep, it's the booster that is going to splash down in the ocean, and before it's doing that, it's going to burn. Boom! Okay, back in orbit, we still have one thing to do, and, well, you remember, maybe, my previous video where I built a bit of a tiny space station. And since space stations are also a big thing in Mass Effect, well, let's try to visit one. Okay, this is not as big as the Citadel, of course, or the Nexus, but it kind of has the shape of the central ring structure of the Nexus in Andromeda. Okay, I was kind of, to be honest, a bit disappointed by Andromeda that there is already this gigantic infrastructure in a foreign galaxy. You know, you get there as explorers and I thought, okay, explore, but no, you already have a Citadel-like humongous space station over there just to care for all your needs. Oh well. Okay, Jebediah Carmen is inspecting the hull, and once he has done that, we're going to try to dock it at the space station, which you may remember is called the France. So, the docking ports are in a, well, peculiar place, and this doesn't make it easier to dock this thing. As you can see here, we cannot dock with this thing over here, so we have to do something else. Let's try one of the ports on the side. And this is looking more promising. Yeah, so the station is about, I think, 800 parts or something, and the Tempest is about 400, so all of this combined is even lower than the entire gigantic Normandy I built back in the day. So yeah, I think we're going to have some dock. Yes, there we go. And so this is it. I hope you liked it. Tell me about it in the comments what you think, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.